This video will discuss chapter 11.4, quadrilaterals. So a couple things I want to talk about with quadrilaterals. Keep in mind the word quadrilateral literally means four sides. And so each of these shapes is a quadrilateral as they all have four sides. And so it's really important to think, a lot of people can name what these are, but this one, which kind of looks almost like a triangular jellyfish, is also a quadrilateral because it's got 1, 2, 3, 4 sides, right? And so, like the trapezoid, right, like the rectangle, this is also a quadrilateral. And so, being able to identify a quadrilateral is one thing. The second thing to keep in mind is like this rectangle, which has 4 right angles, meaning this has 360 degrees of interior angles. Each of these is 360 total degrees. So if you look at each of these angles, 1, 2, this would be 3, 4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. They all will add up to 360 degrees. So all quadrilaterals, the angles, the interior angles of all quadrilaterals add up to 360. And so that's where our first problem is going to start. So if you take a look at this problem, this quadrilateral, we know that this is a right angle. This is 75 degrees. This angle we're calling x degrees, and then this is x plus 7. So it's a little bit larger than this one. And so we know that x plus 7 plus 75 plus 90 equals 360. And so now what I'm going to do is combine like terms. So I'm going to combine these terms and combine these terms. And so x plus x is going to give me 2x. 7 plus 75 plus 90 is going to give me 172. And then that will equal 360. Now what I'm trying to do is isolate the variables. So I'm going to subtract 172. Let's take the green one, 172 from both sides, which means this will cancel out, and I'm left with 2x equals 188. And then I got to take the 188 and divide by 2, which means that x is going to equal 94. Now that means that this angle, which is x, is 94 degrees. But keep in mind now this angle, which is x plus 7, is going to be 94 plus 7. So this is going to be 101 degrees. Right? And so 101 plus 94 plus 75 plus 90, that would equal the full 360. So it's one type of problem that you're going to see. The other one has to do with classifying quadrilaterals. You may want to hit pause at some point and copy down this chart. But I want to go through the idea of how we classify. And it's very similar to in science, if you've classified species, there's kind of an order. And so all of these that are underneath fit under the category of quadrilateral because all of these have 4 sides. And so there are basically, at this second level, there are essentially 3, even though you see 2, there are 3 types of quadrilaterals. One would be just a plain old quadrilateral that we can't classify, which might look something like this, right? The one that I was calling the triangular jellyfish, though that's not necessarily a mathematical term for it. And then you would get something like a trapezoid, and that's going to look like this. And then you might get a parallelogram, right? And so that would be something more along the lines of that. Now, at this point, a quadrilateral has 4 sides. A trapezoid has 1 set of parallel lines. A parallelogram has 2 sets of parallel lines. And then just a plain old quadrilateral would have no sets of parallel lines. So no sets of parallel lines, 1 set of parallel lines, and then this one has 2 sets of parallel lines. Okay, and there are no other objects underneath the quadrilateral or underneath the trapezoid. However, there are some other types of shapes that have 2 sets of parallel lines. So you'll notice that these 3 shapes have 2 sets of parallel lines. And so a rectangle not only has two sets of parallel lines, but it also has 4 right angles, whereas a rhombus not only has 2 sets of parallel lines, it also has 4 congruent sides. And so you can see a rectangle does have these 2 sets of parallel lines, but also would have the 4 right angles. And a rhombus, which might look something like this, would have the 2 sets of parallel lines, and all 4 sides would be identical, would be congruent. And then finally, a square, which is actually a rectangle and a rhombus, and a parallelogram and a quadrilateral. A square not only has 4 sides, not only has 2 sets of parallel lines, but it also has 4 right angles and 4 sides that are congruent. So square is actually all of this, which is why a lot of people wonder, a lot of people get confused, but a square is a rectangle is not a square. A square is a rhombus is not a square. A square is a parallelogram is not necessarily a square. And so just kind of keep in mind that as you move down, each of these is also part of the group above. So a trapezoid is also a quadrilateral. A rectangle is also a parallelogram and also a quadrilateral. All right, so again, if you have not done so yet, you may want to hit pause, copy this down, and you can even draw the shapes underneath each of these words if that will make it easier for you to visualize. All right, that's all we got for you on quadrilaterals. Thank you very much for watching the video. Don't forget to do the problems on the bottom of the page. See you in class.